Sure, sounds good.
Okay. And you hear me okay though, right? Am
Yes.
I crooked?
No, you're right smack
Okay.
center.
Okay, good. Now, okay, so you ready then?
Yep.
Okay. So one, two, three. Hi, Edison. Thank you for coming on to my channel. And today I would love to talk with you, and you have some great ideas. And yeah, would you like to say hi?
Hey Quinn, how you doing? Great to see you. You look
Yeah,
amazing.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having
And
me.
so you're in Vancouver today,
I
right?
am. Yes.
Uh-huh. So I know Edison. Actually, when he invited me to do an interview for the is it called BC Radio?
Well, it's a new organization, relatively new, about a couple of years. It's the Vancouver Professional Association of BC.
Oh, okay, right. And yeah, and so that's how I know about Edison. And since then, I've been able to listen to a few of your interviews on the show, and I really like the way that you think about things. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself. What makes you interested in well-being and things that yeah, really around well-being and psychology.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I consider myself definitely. I'm a dreamer, but I like to keep things simple. You know,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and for me, actually, I guess I'll give you a quick backstory of my
Yeah.
journey to Canada. Actually, so I was actually born in Vietnam,
Mm.
and we fled by boat. Actually, in the middle of the night, my family.
Oh,
Uh,
really? Okay,
yes,
like me.
yes,
See, I didn't know that.
but
So what year was this?
so this was 1978.
Oh, wow. Okay, way before when I left. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I was 2 months old at the time.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this was after the Vietnam War, and
Hmm.
the communists they won, and so my family they want to flee because they want to live a life of freedom and
Yes.
choices, and so they risked their lives to just have the opportunity, really, just for us kids, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I, I I remember my dad. He would say that he wanted to leave me behind because he thought I was just too young to
Yeah.
to survive the ocean and the waves and all that stuff. Because I think their mentality was we're not going to make it, but we have to at least try.
Yes. Yes. Do you
And
know
so
how many people on your boat?
uh, I don't, to be honest, but
Hmm.
from pictures, maybe 40,
Okay.
50,
Yeah.
50. Yeah.
And where did you leave from? Did your family tell you? I know you were very young then at that time.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Kenta.
Oh yeah, really? That's my hometown too.
Yeah, I was born in Kenta. And so
Uh-huh.
my assumption is we left from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, my mom, she didn't want to leave me behind because she just had
Mm.
me. And so my mom was like, well, if he doesn't go, I don't go. And
Oh,
so,
okay. Do you know how many siblings you had at the time?
yeah, so I had one older brother. He was 5 years older.
Oh wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then later on, my younger brother was born in Edmonton once we arrived.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys left and yeah. So tell us more.
Yeah. So we fled by boat. I think we were just floating out in the sea for like 2 weeks. We got to
Mm.
a refugee camp in Malaysia. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe we stayed there for about 9 months before Canada and the U.S. started to open up their
Oh,
borders to
really?
refugees.
Wow. 9 months. Because
Yeah,
at that time, I thought that they would take you guys pretty fast at that time.
um, I I
Uh-huh.
believe that because of us refugees, that Canada created this new immigration act at the time
Oh,
to
okay.
allow
Yeah.
refugees in. So it was because of us boat people that there's this act in Canada,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, so Canada was first to really open the borders, and then U.S. followed maybe 6 months after.
Wow. Really? So you were probably what, one of the first Canadian?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, because the US would start early, right? But Canada. Yeah, I wouldn't think they would be that early.
Yeah. So I think my cousin was telling me that their family, they want to go to the US, so they waited.
Yeah.
But my dad and mom didn't want to wait, so they said, let's just go to Canada, whatever's first. And so
Right. Yeah.
Edmonton was where we went.
Edmonton. Oh my goodness. Like Edmonton's really cold. And at that time, I mean, there are Asian people there now, but at that time, you guys probably one of the uh, black hair people.
Yep, definitely.
Uh-huh.
But
What was it like? How long were you guys in Edmonton?
well, we ended up staying for 4 years.
Mm,
Um, we came to Vancouver on a vacation during the winter, and then
yeah.
my parents are like, "This is winter,"
Yeah.
and then literally the next year we moved over.
Oh, smart move.
Yeah, three
Uh-huh.
young kids. So
Yeah. And so
yeah,
what was it like for you growing up in Vancouver? Like, did you, at that time, probably not a lot of Vietnamese in Vancouver at that time in the early 80s.
yeah.
What was it
The
like for
brother
you?
born. We only stayed in Vancouver for a couple of years, and
Mm,
then my parents, they wanted to, I guess, raise us up in a smaller town, so we
yeah.
actually moved to Langley. And at that time, we were like
Yeah.
definitely one of the only Asian families there. It was like all
Right.
white people.
Yeah.
And but I was great. I'm very grateful because growing up, even though I was like the only Asian in the school,
Mm-hmm.
I never had any issues with racism or like malicious teasing. Like kids will be kids, but
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
I was very fortunate. They were all friends and friendly, and yeah, so I'm grateful for that experience.
Do you know what helped with your integration at that time? Because integration, a part of it is your environment, but also part of it is also how you show up with people, right? So do you know what helped you with that integration, that they accepted you? And
Um, to be honest, I don't know. I
yeah.
was I was just so young, right? Like as a kid, I was 7 years old when we moved to
Right.
LA, and you know, all the kids are just, you know, kids are kids. They don't really see um, much difference. Maybe they see difference, but not really.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
just accepted you for who you are. And then over the years, you develop friendships, and yeah,
And then kids would come to your house and things like that.
yeah, yeah.
Your
And
parents, did they speak English?
probably not that much at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, obviously, they learned. My dad a lot quicker. My mom not so much, uh, but she learned more English when she opened up a tailor shop. So that's how we started um,
Mm.
being entrepreneurs.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would be um, some kind of important moments in your childhood that would shape you the way you are today? What would you say would
Hmm.
be an important moment like that? Like,
Uh,
why are you interested in psychology and um, people? Like,
yeah, definitely. I don't know. It's kind of interesting for myself. I've always kind of growing up ever since I was young, as far as I can remember. I always just wanted to be able to make a positive impact in the world.
mm,
I don't know where that came from specifically,
hmm,
uh, but I always thought, you know what, I want to do something good for this world. And so everything as I was growing up, I was always asking myself, how is this helping the world?
mm,
And so like I would always help where when people would ask, like, oh hey, can you help me move? Can you help
hmm,
me with this math? And I was like, okay, cool, sure, I'll help. But then what's the bigger meaning behind all this?
mm,
I was always a curious kid.
yeah,
And so I just kind of just went through life trying to accumulate different skills and just to grow and to learn so that I don't know when I would need them, but
hmm,
I would hope to be able to actually help others in some way, shape, or form as I accumulate different skills.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And like your parents, were they quite practical, or were they what were
Yeah,
they like?
definitely. They're, you know, they're Asian parents, trying to figure out how to live in a different culture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
And so for them, they have, you know, traditional Asian values, you know, just focus on school, nothing else. And they valued it very, very highly. And that's kind of what they just told us to concentrate on, right? They said, you
Right.
know, they taught us to be grateful. They taught us great values and virtues.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and, you know, I remember even when I was in my early teens, I would see my parents helping new immigrants just
Mm.
acclimate into the culture. Like,
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like, 'cause at the time, Canada was very open, and it's much easier back then
Yeah.
to sponsor different family members
Mm.
from Vietnam. And so
Mm-hmm.
I remember my dad, he would always, okay, here, I'll take you to the doctor if you need translation. I'll take you to the you know what back then, you know, the welfare office, and just to help people, the free store, to get people started to
Yeah.
just
Uh-huh.
live
Yeah.
and be somewhat comfortable in a brand new country.
Right.
Yeah.
So growing up, do you think of yourself as what, Canadian? Do you think of yourself as a Vietnamese or Vietnamese Canadian?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think growing up, I identified more, I think, with the Canadian culture because that's what I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
But in the home, it was all Vietnamese culture, and I had a lot of family around, so I learned a lot back then.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I viewed myself more Canadian back then,
Mm-hmm.
with Vietnamese roots, and I would always I would have to learn more about the Vietnamese side,
Yeah.
because I only know what I grew up in my home, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in Canada, I will be able to learn all different types because that's the conversation when I have with people.
Yeah. Okay. So when I talked with you about this interview, you said to me that you really want to challenge your comfort zone. Can you share with us some of your thoughts around that, and what have you done to challenge your comfort zone?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of interesting. Ever since I was young, I don't know. I've always been wanting to, I don't know, just excel, right? Just be good with whatever
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing. And so the only way I could, the only way I can grow is to be able to get outside of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think growing up, I got comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
And so I would always put myself in different situations, and even now, like, I think when I really got into the world of personal growth,
Right.
that's when I really embraced, just stretching myself and just growing and focusing
Right.
on that.
Okay.
And
Can
yeah,
you think of an example when you did that, and when you think back, you're like, wow, I'm really glad I did that. Is there one that stands out for you?
well, definitely, I think one of the challenges that I had taken on a few years ago was just every day I would go out and just engage with 15 or more people that I've never met before.
Every day.
Every day.
How would
Yeah.
you engage that with them? What do you do?
So yeah, every day would be something different. So
Uh-huh. Yeah.
engage doesn't necessarily mean that I get into a deep conversation,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
but it's to be able to just talk to somebody. And for me, it was more to acknowledge and let them know that they are
Mm.
seeing.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
hopefully, if we get into a conversation, that they are important in this world.
Mm.
And yeah, it could have started off as simple as a compliment. Hey, I
Right.
like your shoes. I like your shirt.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it was just opening a door and just holding it for somebody.
Wow. How long did you do that for?
That was for actually quite a number of months.
Uh-huh.
I think it's probably at least I guess it's at least 6 months. I think.
And so was that more recently, or was that back when you were like, say, 20s or something?
No, that was probably in my mid 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know how when you think back of say your 20s versus your 30s, um, do you see a big difference?
Oh yes, definitely. Um, in my 20s, I went through a very challenging time.
Do you? Yeah.
Uh, Unfortunately, it wasn't even my issue.
But it wasn't your issue, you said?
It wasn't even my issue. Yeah, it was my parents.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they were going through a separation and divorce and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I didn't know how to help.
Yeah.
So I tried to help them with all their business dealings as much as I could, so that they can just focus on repairing the marriage and heal.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but I lived with them for 4 years
Mm.
in a very toxic environment.
Yeah.
And so, I understand that, they were going through their own struggle
Yeah.
through all that. And, they were just trying to be heard and be understood and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But every day, literally, I would be pulled one way and then
Mm.
I'll be pulled the other way.
Yeah.
And, I can't pick a side, right? I'm
Right.
giving
Yeah.
them both of their children
Uh-huh.
to child. And so after 4 years of living that,
Mm.
it broke me down.
Really?
Yeah.
How so?
By that time, I was basically a shell of a person. After 2 years, I tried to leave,
Yeah.
and I would talk to my dad. I was talking to my mom. My mom would beg me to
Mm.
stay and say, we're still trying to figure things out. Just stay a little bit longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And me trying to be a good son,
Mm.
I stayed, and that was that was not a good decision for myself. And looking back, I don't think that was a good decision for them either,
How
because
come? What makes you think that?
my mom started to lean on me,
Oh, okay.
knowing that I was still there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't. Yeah, looking back, I don't think that was the healthiest decision for me.
Yeah. So going through something like that, what would be your advice for children or adults going, things like that, like conflicts or separation between parents? What would you advise them on based on your own experience?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, there's so much, but I'll just touch on a few. Number one is,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
definitely don't use children as pawns. Don't make them decide. Don't
Yeah.
uh, pit your ex as a bad person,
Mm-hmm.
because what you're really saying is that one half of you is no good.
Right.
And when I got that message from both sides daily,
Oh, uh-huh.
after 4 years, I'm just like,
Like,
it
who
felt
am
so
I kind
real.
of thing.
Yeah, who am I? I felt as if
Right.
I was in like the twilight zone.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would you so that's kind of from parents' perspective. Don't make them choose side, don't talk badly about the other person.
Mhm.
But what about from the children's perspective? What would you what would you share with them so that they're not falling in that pit?
Yeah. Ideally, you don't want to be living in a toxic environment. That's first and foremost. Um, and obviously, depending on the age, I was an adult. I could have
Yeah.
left,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I chose not to. I just didn't know any better.
Right.
But if it's younger children, then you know, uh, well, at the time, my both my parents, they still lived in the same roof, under
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same roof.
Hmm.
So that was a huge challenge in itself.
Right.
But yeah, if they're actually going to separate, then hopefully the parents actually separate to separate living quarters, so
Yeah.
that the child has an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think in the Asian communities, but also I guess in general, people think that the best thing to do is to stay for the two parents to stay together, right? But only if they civilized and if they getting along somehow, right? It's I mean they don't have to totally agree with everything, but they got to be respectful with each other. But if there's a lot of toxicity, staying together is not necessarily good for the children.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, like you said, in the Asian culture, it's well back then. I don't think not as much nowadays, but
Yeah,
back then, like having a divorce, that's so taboo. That's like no, that'll bring shame to the family, and it just
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and so um t you told me lately you've been involved in something on Facebook. Can you share with us about that?
Yeah. So it's a Facebook Live challenge
Uh-huh. Yeah.
that I started in December 2020,
Mm.
and I just did it really to support a friend.
Yeah.
He kind of put it on Facebook. Hey, I'm starting this 30-day Facebook Live challenge. Who wants to join me?
Uh-huh.
And for him, it was just to stretch himself again.
Right.
For me, I was quite comfortable already doing videos and posting myself up. So for
Mm.
me, I use it as an opportunity to raise my level of intention.
Right.
And my goal was for the 30 days to every day just add some value in some way, shape, or form to the people who are watching my videos.
Uh-huh. Any particular theme, or just adding, not just, but more about adding values?
To be honest, there's no theme.
Yeah.
It was just positivity because number one, at that time it was about we're about 8, 9 months into the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
people are a lot of uncertainty.
Right. Really great timing.
Yeah. And so for me, it's like, I just want to add some positivity out there. So, I do maybe some motivation or inspiration.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so how many days have you done that now?
I'm actually on day 130 today.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's like 4 months and 10 days.
Yeah. Crazy.
Uh-huh. That's amazing. So yeah, I saw you talk about um the windshield and the back, what did they call it? Back rear mirror, right? Is that what you call that?
The rear view mirror.
The yeah, I can't say that.
Rear
The
view.
rear view
Yes.
mirror.
That's good.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that analogy? Because when I listen to that, I really love that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's just analogy of just what we should be actually focusing on, right? And so the windshield is much bigger than the
Mm,
rear view mirror,
yeah.
and so it's an analogy to just remind people like to focus on the road, or
Hmm.
really in this analogy, focus on your future.
Right.
Where are you headed? And then with the rear view mirror, the reason why it's so small is that you're not supposed to be looking or focusing on it, right? You should be using it to glance back.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And one thing that the rearview mirror can do is just to remind you how far you've gone and how far
Mm,
you've come.
yes.
And the other thing the rearview mirror is supposed to help you do is to keep you safe.
Yes.
And so the events in the past, if you choose to view it that way, is an opportunity for you to learn how to protect yourself, how to grow, how to learn from those situations, and hopefully not jade you,
Hmm.
or um, hopefully you don't put up a wall. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Because um it's kind of like they're kind of like two people tend to take the two extremes, right? One extreme is that they focus a lot on the past, so they make that um, rear view mirror way big, and everything they see is more that instead of what's in front. So that's one extreme, and the other extreme is people tend to say the past is the past, which is that's the goal. But often certain things in the past, if they haven't resolved it, if they haven't dealt with it, it tends to keep showing up for them. So even though they try to ignore, but it keeps following them. Have you had that experience, or have you seen people that they try to deny or ignore the past, but yet it keeps popping up in different ways? I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh yes, definitely, all the time. Um, I work with people in a number of capacities, and so I see so many times people who have issues that
Mm-hmm.
they're just not willing to face.
Yes.
And so what they do is they basically they sweep it under the rug.
Yes. Uh-huh.
But the challenge is it's still under the rug.
Yeah, yeah. I think of it like another way I think of it is like garbage, right? You have garbage inside a house. If you
Yes.
don't get rid of that garbage, at first it may be just a faint smell, but eventually it's a lot of smell, and then eventually it can really create all kinds of bacteria in your house.
Oh yes, definitely. I like that analogy. I've heard it before too, but I haven't used it in a long time. So thank you for
Uh,
the
well,
reminder.
my analogy is not as pretty, or it's not as um, but and so for you, I guess, has there been anything in the past that you would, it took you a while to overcome that,
Yeah,
or
I
you
think
tend to let
so.
go pretty fast?
For most things, I've been able to let go, and
Hmm.
there's one thing actually was quite eye-opening for me a few years ago. Actually, it's about a decade now. So
Right.
for me, logically, I know that my parents did the best they could in
Yeah.
how they raised me,
Hmm.
right? And I'm very grateful. I'm so grateful for everything that my parents have done. But again, for them, they lived in the old country where success is seen as becoming a professional, a doctor, lawyer,
Yeah, yeah.
engineer, what have you.
Did they encourage you to be a doctor?
Oh yeah, that was
And that's such an old song, isn't it?
it is, but that's what they knew,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. I know.
I was the one that was strong academically out of my brothers,
Oh yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
so my parents basically they pinned it on me. Okay, there's our doctor of the future,
Yeah.
and everything they said was pushing me, pushing me, pushing me towards being that.
Mm.
But my dream was actually to be a pro athlete.
Oh yeah.
I loved sports, and
Oh really?
yeah,
Wow, that's interesting for someone who's interested in, psychology and people. Yeah, it's really cool to hear that you're interested in sports.
yeah, that was
Mm.
my first love, and it's still my love.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so powerful,
Right.
and so my parents again they never supported me. Anytime I would try, they would
Hmm.
shoot me down. I remember one time they allowed me to play in a tennis tournament one time,
Yeah.
and I basically beat myself, and I was playing against the number one seed.
Uh-huh.
And coming back to my first tournament, thinking I did decent.
Yeah.
Um, my
Yeah.
parents, of course, me going to them, I was looking for encouragement, right? Oh,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
okay, maybe next time.
Yeah.
Instead, they said, "See, we told you so."
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I was just like, that was like a dagger to my heart, and then
Right.
twisted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
What did
and
you do
so
with that? Did you abandon that path, or did you continue anyway?
no, I abandoned. I didn't have any support.
Um,
I
right.
wanted them to support me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my main sport that I want to play was ice hockey, and that's very expensive. So if they're not going to support me,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but but over the years, logically, I'm like, you know what? They did the best they could,
Right.
so I kind of just let it go. And over the
Mm-hmm.
years, I didn't realize this, but there was still a hint of resentment.
Right.
Uh, and my dad has a son with another lady, and so I have a half brother, and he was
Uh-huh.
about 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And my dad would put him into ice hockey and all these sports, and I'm just like,
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
and so one day I'm just like, it would have been nice had you
Uh-huh.
put me into all these sports when I was young.
Right.
And then for him, he said, I didn't know back then.
Yeah. I know, I have a sister who's 18 years younger than me.
Oh wow.
And like my mom, I mean my dad's always very passive, right? But my mom is so much more gentle with her, and a lot, you do whatever you like. I mean, she has some rules for sure, because my sister is still living with her. Whereas for me, oh, education, education, and when I got a boyfriend at 18, 16, she was really mad and education. And
Yeah.
ironically enough, yes, I turned to education, but that's because I wanted it, not because of being pressured. But yeah, that's just always you gotta be, be educated, and it turned out that I am the most educated person in my family.
Oh, nice.
but but not because of her, because it was just really annoying, right? Because you wanted to be coming from the child. But yeah, how interesting that often the younger sister or the younger brother, you think that's because they learn from them, or do you think that maybe generation has changed them with age, or
I think a little bit of both.
yeah.
Because from what I gather, even from my friends, like they all have like many of my friends have 2 kids, 3
Mm-hmm.
kids. One of my
Yeah,
buddies, he has 4 boys.
right, yeah,
And yeah, the first one they're always the most strict, and then as they go along, they're less, and they're more open. So I don't know if
yeah,
that's
yeah, uh-huh.
yeah.
And so what's something that how people often talk about bucket lists or things that they still really want to do? Are there things that you plan to do soon or in the next 10 years?
Well, for me, I love learning about different cultures, and so
Yeah.
I want to be able to travel many parts of the world to be able to
Mm.
see it, to be able to learn about different cultures, different
Yeah.
foods. I'm a huge foodie,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and so that's big for me. And really, just to connect with other people from different parts, and just to learn, really.
Yeah. So okay. So you like to travel, you like to eat, you like to talk to people, engage with people. What has COVID time been like for you?
Uh, I've definitely had my moments.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty positive guy in general.
Mm-hmm.
But with isolation and the restrictions, it's definitely different.
Yeah.
Uh, I was literally out every single day or night,
Yeah.
meeting people, going to events, just
Uh-huh.
out there every single day. And to
Yeah.
be to be forced to just essentially stay in my home, stay in my neighborhood, not really meeting that many new people in
Right.
in person, that was definitely a challenge.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but you adapt. Well, I adapted.
Yeah.
We're humans, and that's one of the most beautiful things is that we're stronger than we think. And yeah, I just adapted, and I just reached out. And when it got quite a bit antsy, I started to reach out to a couple of people that I
Uh-huh.
that I really look up to.
Mm-hmm.
Influencers, and just had a chat with them, and it just help ground me,
Mm-hmm.
and just again give me different perspective, and just it was also nice to just hear that if you're having a challenge, that it's okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to be quote unquote strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was reassuring in the moment.
Right. Yeah. And so as a man growing up in an Asian home, um, y- yeah, like how did your perception about feelings change or not change? What was that like for you around feelings and emotions? Because as a man, men are taught to not talk about feelings too much, particularly in Asian kind of families, right? So
Yep.
what's that been like for you about feelings?
That has been a work in progress
Yeah.
over many many years. Because when I was younger, I was very much in my head. I
Uh-huh.
had feelings, I had emotions, but I never really talked about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so growing up in my early 20s, I didn't have the tools to really communicate properly what I
Mhm.
was really thinking and what I was really feeling.
Yeah.
I just didn't have that practice, if you will.
Right.
And through personal growth, I was able to start practicing it. And yeah, like I remember one time I had a coach that I was working with in business, and we
Mm.
had been working together for a number of years. And when I was going to, you know, the time that my parents were going through the divorce,
Mm-hmm.
I talked to him about it, and we had built a great relationship, and he said, "I love you,"
Uh-huh.
and I froze up. I want to say I love you, but
Yeah.
I've never said it. It's,
Mm.
you know, again, like men, we don't
I will
express
say, I
our
love you.
feelings, right? We don't say that apparently,
Yeah.
and yeah, after
Even
like
for me as a woman, like I often don't say I love you that often. My sister, she would say, I love you. And me too. Or my husband, I love you. Me too.
that's so funny.
It's not just you.
Yeah, so it's
But it's
very
so
relatable.
ingrained in Asian people, right? It's hard to say those things.
Yeah, and so
Mhm.
yeah, and then over time, I'm like, what happened there? I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to say it because I do love him and I appreciate
Uh-huh.
everything he's done for
Right.
me. But like I said, a work in progress. So I
Mm-hmm.
started to work on my communication, just expressing myself a little bit more. And another probably decade, or a little less than a decade, I had another coach and mentor, and
Yeah.
same thing. He said, "I love you." After a number of years working with him, as I
Uh-huh.
was
Yeah.
going through some stuff.
What kind of mentors do you have? That's wonderful.
Oh yeah,
It's great to have mentors. It's not that easy to get mentors.
yeah. But
Yeah.
like, but mentors don't have to necessarily be in a formal manner. Like
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
they can be informal. It's just a matter
Mm-hmm.
of just building that relationship with somebody that
Yeah.
that you respect. You reach out, and the thing is, what I found is a lot of times people who are successful, they're
Mm-hmm.
more than happy to actually help.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter that you just gotta prove or show them that you're actually serious enough.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
I know you notice I haven't asked you about what you do because especially often we really define people by what they do a lot, right? That's how they really define success, and um, especially for men. And I usually in interviews we start out introducing what this person has done, what this person has accomplished, and I didn't start your interview like that. I don't even know a lot about what you do. I just like your attitude. It's just
Oh,
it's,
thank you.
and not like I'm not really sure what do you do exactly. So you want to share with us about what you do?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I've done a ton of different things over the years, but right
Mhm.
now, I manage a company that rents out casino tables and dealers for private events.
Uh-huh, yeah.
But obviously, all that's been shut down right now.
Right. Can you explain that again? So you have a company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm an operator, and
Yeah.
the company's called Casino Royale Rentals.
Yeah.
I just rent out casino tables,
Casino tables. Yeah.
yes, and dealers
Okay. Yeah.
for private events.
Or private events.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So a lot of times it's like corporate year-end parties, Christmas
Mm.
parties, dry grads,
Yeah.
birthday parties, fundraisers. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's why you really out there a lot then. Yeah, because you're in that kind of field, right?
Well, that's not why I'm out there actually.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The other thing I do, I have an online store that I'm working on growing, and I teach people how to do the same thing. For me, no matter what I do,
Uh-huh.
like I know, I think in general for most men,
Yes.
we define ourselves, our identities a lot of times wrapped up in what we do.
Yeah, yeah, right.
For me, I've never cared about that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Uh, for me, anything that I'm doing, my hope and my focus is on helping whoever I work with
Mm-hmm.
to become the best version of themselves.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's like you travel, right? When you travel, you can go by cruise, you can go by airplane, some people can even go by boat, you can go by car, right?
Yeah,
Purpose is more to travel, to meet new people, new culture. And so what you're telling me is doesn't matter what you do, your main your purpose or goal is to help people, to add value.
yeah, yeah. Because yeah, my belief is that we are all one family,
Mm-hmm.
the human family. It's the messaging that we get from the world or media, what have you. Like, oh, you're white, you're Asian, so you guys are
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
You're uh, you're Catholic and you're
Mm-hmm.
Islam, so that's different.
Yeah.
Like, these are all things that create division,
Right.
right? But for me, my focus is on actually unifying
Mm-hmm.
the world.
Yes.
And so, yeah, if we can start to have people start to understand, hey, you know what? We're actually a lot more of the same than we are different.
Yeah. Well, they say even on the DNA level, right? We're 98, 99% similar.
Hmm.
And so, what do you hope to achieve, or what's your goal after COVID time?
Oh, it really is nothing different than what I've been working on for the last number of
Is
years.
it? Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's again just to be help. Excuse me, just to be able to help people learn more about themselves, become the best version of
Mm-hmm.
themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and then with a select handful of people to help them develop their leadership. Because yeah, becoming a better person will
Mm-hmm.
help add to a better world.
Yes.
To be able to help people develop into leaders will help multiply that impact.
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately, well, not ultimately, but another step is develop leaders who develop leaders. And
That's
that
right. Yeah.
will create an exponential impact.
Mm-hmm.
But that takes a long time.
It does.
So,
And that's why it's important to enjoy the journey, right?
oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
and it sounds like, I mean, it sounds like you really enjoy your life on the videos that you post on Facebook, even like cutting your own hair.
Yeah, I honestly, I really do. Like the story I told you about how I got to Canada, like I could have been dead. I could not even be here.
I know. Yeah.
So every day is a blessing, and I am so grateful every single
Hmm.
day just for another day of life and for this
Yeah.
experience.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for sharing with us today. And I just really appreciate you sharing candidly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's my pleasure.
My pleasure too.
Yeah.
And so this is we're signing off. This is Quyn Lê Empowered Living channel. And please tune in next time for something else. I don't know yet what it will be. So you can find out. Bye bye.
Bye.